So the title of my talk this morning is Mirror Worlds. And this is a term coined by a political writer, Naomi Klein. And she's also a journalist. And in my estimation, she's someone that writes with integrity, curiosity, and compassion. And I can rarely say that about political writers. But there's um, something that she's been talking about with writing a new book, and she's found her own voice in the writing, and it's become something that feels more authentic to her. Something her book is a really like how she would talk to her friends, and that feels, that resonates with me since we just did that, and I feel really happy that she's kind of come to that understanding that that's how she wants to engage with the world. And she's not using this journalistic distance that she's used so much as a part of her past books. So her new book is called Doppelganger, and this is a German word for a double, a living person that's a double of you. And she explores in this book what she learned from shadowing her doppelganger and describes a mirror world. Um, and in writing the book, the mirror world is her definition for this growing right wing alternative universe. She says of misinformation and conspiracies, and that within that universe there are kernels of truth, kernels of uh, right right understanding, and problems that exist, but then they're turned and used opportunistically into a hateful and divisive agenda. And this makes things really confusing, I think, for myself and for the world. I'm going to quote her. It's very destabilizing, says Klein, who still urges people to seriously engage with dangerous ideas propagated in the mirror world rather than simply looking away. So here's her quote. It's so hard to look at the reality that we're in right now, with the overlay of endless wars, climate disasters, and massive inequality. And so, whether we're making up fantastical conspiracy theories or getting lost in our reflections, it's about looking at reality that is only bearable if we get outside our heads and collectively organize. So, in my words, I'm just trying to think, how did I resonate with this voice, with what she's saying? And I hear her talking about dukkha. I hear her talking about dukkha, the dukkha that we all know of the world. Um, we often define dukkha, if you're not familiar with the term, as that which is unbearable, hurt, pain, and anguish, and the vulnerability that we have in the face of something that's unbearable. Um, and she's talking about the ways that we skirt it, that it's hard to face, and fantasies are a way we skirt it, conspiracy theories, getting lost and confused. um, but what she's getting at, I think, is that this has become personal for her, and the personal is not just happening. This mirror world is not just happening to somebody out there. It's really happening to her and her family and her friends and her world. Um, and that she notes that the pandemic has been a big change for making this more personal, that you can't get outside the pandemic. It affected everybody. It's not like reporting on something over there. Um, so it makes the dukkha more personally and more ours. Now, when we say that, I think, why would we want to make that dukkha more ours? That seems to go against a Buddhist teaching of anatta. Anatta is that there's no isolated, enduring self. it really, anatta is that we're conditioned and connected to others, conditioned by and connected to others. But it seems that we should not feel this mirror world as ours. We should actually try to, detach from it, get more dispassion around it. But I think this is where the practice of reflective meditation has a kind of unique perspective, because it does encourage us to face our collective and personal dukkha, but we don't really tell people how to do this or what they should do, or what teachings in the dharma are transformational for you. We don't know which ones will actually help your transformation. But we do know that living closer to our values, to our experience, we have a better chance of bringing those values and that experience out when we interact with others. And that I really consider is a form of activism. And it's a serious engagement with dukkha rather than looking away from it, even if we're not forcing ourselves to look at it now in a certain way, that over time we are facing things that are really unbearable and difficult to face in this larger world. Now, Naomi's story is particularly interesting. I haven't read the book yet. I've just listened to interviews and read a lot of reviews. But she describes another Naomi, a Naomi Wolf. She's Naomi Klein, who looks similar, who's a writer and speaker, and is a frequent guest on Steve Bannon's show. And she's constantly mistaken for her. So she has lived the last 10 years of her life as living with her opposite out there, who's speaking, and her words are being attributed to Naomi Wolf's words are being attributed to Naomi Klein's. And the strange thing is that Naomi Wolf used to be what Naomi Klein is now, a feminist, a political writer, a leftist bent. But she changed camps, so to speak. So it's even more another mirror. It's even more confusing. And she has one point in her interviews, which she's really made a strong statement. She says, "But then something happened. I got interested." And rather than this 10 years of pain that she's been living with, it took her that long to finally get interested in this and say, okay, what is this woman doing? I have to now start listening to what she's saying. I have to shadow her. I have to follow her. And to me, this is a kind of parallel with the practice of going from this dukkha, hurts, ouch, 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 to, I can't stand this, to, oh, maybe I'm going to have to get interested in this. And not just that, but getting interested in it leads to a larger perspective and to greater understanding. And I think that's what Naomi Klein is saying, is that now she's been able to put together something she's calling a mirror world, and looking into it more deeply and starting to understand the connections and why this is so confusing, because there's kernels of truth in what these dangerous, let's say, conspiracy theories are propagating. So here's another quote from her. Doppelgangers are often understood as a warning or an omen, a message that something needs our attention. What I have learned is that forces that have destabilized my personal world are a part of a much larger web of forces that are destabilizing our shared world. And understanding these forces may be our best hope of getting on firmer ground. And here again, she's in my mind, in my understanding, she's pointing in the direction of the dharma. That dukkha is a sign that something needs our attention. And the distortions in the mirrors that we're looking at, we have to kind of sort through those. And that our personal mirrors are not isolated from the larger worlds, what's going on in the larger world, our systems, that we are connected and conditioned by others and by the systems that we live in. Um, so to me, that there's no separate self, like of my own personal dukkha when I'm going through my own anxieties or depressions or upsets, that they really are part of the world I'm living in. This brings me some kind of relief, some kind of understanding, just a kernel of it that just kind of downshifts my heightened let's say, fear of where we're going, of what's going to happen to us. It also, in a sense, it really takes us out of being a victim, victimized by something, or also imagining that I can conquer these larger forces, that there's some way that I should be able to do something to stop all of this. So anyway, I hope that reflective meditation does that for you. And that's a little kernel of my truth this morning. So I will end there and we'll practice together.